Have you tried all of the different cleaning systems out there and you've printed out all of the checklists and chore charts and thought this is going to be the time that I'm finally going to get my house under control? And then it didn't work. And you're wondering why everyone else seems to be able to figure this out, but you're struggling so much. Believe me when I say that I get it. I am Tessa. I am a mom of soon to be 6. My husband and I have a dairy farm. We also homeschool, which means I have kids underfoot all day long. And over the last 20 years, I've struggled from various physical and mental health issues that have made getting a home under control really difficult. I understand that struggle. But what I have learned over the last decade and a half of being a mom is that there are specific steps to creating a home management system that a lot of other people out there aren't teaching. And I have applied these steps to myself, but I've also coached other women through it and helped them set up their own systems. And so I know it is a proven system that works. And I want to share with you these 5 basic steps to designing a home management system that works for you and your family so that you can improve your skills as a homemaker and finally feel like there is some semblance of control in your home. If that sounds interesting, hit the subscribe button and let's get to know each other a little more. Okay, first I want to dive a little bit into why those systems aren't working for you. Really, the key is they're not designed for you. They don't take into consideration your home, your family, the personalities of your children and your personality. They don't take into consideration all of the different things that you've got on your plate. So when you are taking somebody else's system and applying it to your home, there are going to be modifications that you're going to have to make. And for some women, there's less modifications than others. If you're trying to figure all this stuff out around work or homeschooling or a large family, like I do all 3 of those, then it's going to change what you need within your home. Another big key is it's taking somebody else's standards and trying to impose them on you. Now, I had seen one of these checklists in the past that said something like, oh, you should be washing your windows weekly, cleaning your baseboards monthly. And my very first thought when I read that on this checklist was, people wash their baseboards? Like, that's a thing? I mean, I wash it if I spill like purple smoothie on it or something, but to me, to wash my baseboards every month, and we live in the country, so we get a lot of dust and we're surrounded by birds that like to run into our windows. Washing my windows weekly, it's not even practical for me. They just kind of get dirty and I've learned to live with it. So it's just one example of a standard that didn't apply to me and my home. It just didn't make sense for me to do that. So that is actually phase 1 of building a home management system that you love and that works for your family, is determine your own standards. Now, when we move out of our parents' home and into our own home, we take a lot of standards from our mother. You throw in a spouse and you take their standards and the standards of your mother-in-law. Then let's throw us into this Instagram and Pinterest world where we are looking online at these beautiful, immaculate, magazine-ready homes, and we start taking their standards into consideration. And let's just say it gets a little bit complicated to keep up with all of those different inputs we have when it comes to setting standards for our home. At the end of the day, what's going to get done in your home is what matters to you. Like I said, for me, washing my windows weekly or my baseboards monthly doesn't matter to me. It doesn't happen. And it's not something that I'm going to put on my homemaking rhythms. It just wouldn't make sense because I would feel like a failure every time it came by and I thought, oh, that'll be fine. So maybe for you, having your counter clean every night is not a standard you can maintain at this point. I know that there's a big thing, don't go to bed with a dirty kitchen. But what if that doesn't actually matter to you? I'll confess, for a long time in my life, due to my mental and physical health struggles, by the end of the day, I was just done. I could not physically, mentally, emotionally handle cleaning up dinner dishes. So for years and years and years, I didn't. I spent extra time in the morning when I knew I would have the time and the energy to clean up my kitchen. And I just ignored it at night, and I would go and sit on the couch and have a relaxing evening with my husband and any of my small children that didn't go to bed on time. And you know what? Nothing bad happened. Seriously, I left dishes on my table and my counter all night, every night for, 10 or more years, and nothing bad ever happened, including my own sanity was not stretched by that. Now, if that's something that's important to you and you can't go to bed without a clean kitchen, then it works for you. Move that, work that into your rhythms. My point here is that you get to choose what's important in your home and what you want done in your home and how frequently. So that is phase 1. Determine the standards that you have for your own home. Okay, step number 2. Get clear on what needs to be done in each room and how often it needs to be done. And again, this comes back to a little bit, once you figure out exactly what's important to you, where your priorities are, it's really easy to grab, I'd like to grab just like a sheet of loose leaf and a clipboard or a hardcover book if I can't find a clipboard, and go through each room in my house and I write down, hey, this is something that bothers me. For example, I don't mind a little bit of clutter on my end tables, but when my bookshelves are out of order, that one irks me. I'm a huge reader. My family, because we homeschool, we're all huge readers, and I have a rather ridiculous collection of books in my home. And it drives me crazy when they are just kind of, the kids' bookshelf, I've learned to make peace with the fact that that will never be perfect. But when it's my books that are out of order, that drives me crazy. So that's something I work into my regular rhythm. Again, might not be important to everybody. And honestly, most people probably wouldn't even notice if the books are out of order. But for me, that's a priority. And other people would come into my house and say, well, you've got a lot of clutter on that end table. And I would say, oh yeah, because I use it every single day. That's just kind of the way it happens. And every month or so, I clean out the clutter on my end table. So when I went around with my clipboard to my living room, those were a couple of things that I put on it. Again, not what everybody else would do. Maybe it doesn't bother you if your books are out of order. Maybe the clutter on the end tables bothers you. And say, okay, well, how often am I going to do this? Do I want to clean it up every evening because this is where I sit and I want my living room to be my zone of peace in the evening? Or do you want to clean it up every week or every month like I do? Make your own decision about when is it really going to start bothering you that is there. And honestly, if it's not bothering you at this moment, write it down as a side note. Hey, there's clutter on the end tables or on the dresser or whatever. There's dust on the TV. Maybe that's something that really bothers you. I'm just trying to think. I can't even remember the last time I dusted my TV. I don't know. Is that a thing that you're supposed to do? Maybe my husband's doing it behind my back. I've never really noticed. I don't watch TV a lot. So again, that's not a priority to me. It comes back to use those standards, go through each of the rooms in your home, figure out what you need to do, how often you want to do it. Write down on your paper. You're going to write down a couple of different things. What needs to be done in this room? How often would you like to have that on your regular rotation? How often are you currently doing it? And how long does it take? So, I mean, clearing off the clutter on an end table might take you 10 minutes. It might take you 20 minutes, depending on how big your end table is. Maybe you've got a dresser and it's going to take you a half an hour every month. Write down how long it's going to take. And then what you're going to do is when you're making your final lists of things you want to do in your home on a regular basis, pick some time in the middle. If you say you'd like to do it every week, but you're really only doing it twice a year at this point, put down that you're going to do it every month or every other month. Because obviously it's been fine. Just like my dishes on my counter all night, nothing bad is going to happen if you do it a little bit less frequently. So, number 1, standards. Number 2, figure out your lists of what's important to you within that room. The third step to building a home management system that you love is to schedule those tasks around your family and your lifestyle. Now, the thing with breaking it into small tasks, instead of going through the room and just saying, hey, I want to clean the living room every day or every other day, you're breaking it into those very small step-by-step tasks, is that you can kind of start to squeeze these tasks within the fringe hours of your schedule. If you have children in school, then you can say, oh, well, you know what? As soon as I get them off on the bus or drop them off, I can come home and I can do about a half an hour in the kitchen. So what are the tasks that will add up to about a half an hour that are going to move my kitchen forward? And if you can't fit more at that point, walk away. schedule another time. Maybe you have time after lunch, or if you're headed off to work all day, then you're going to have to get a little more creative. Maybe you can do 10 minutes of work in the kitchen before you go drop kids off at school or go to work, and then you fit in 20 minutes afterwards. Honestly, at the end of a busy work day or at the end of a busy day with children, if you're not feeling the energy, if you know that that is a lower energy time for you, plan smaller chunks of tasks. The reality is homemaking doesn't have to take a long time. Regular home maintenance doesn't have to. Now, obviously, there are going to be bigger projects that you'll have to schedule in on that, but I'm talking regular home maintenance, kind of staying caught up on the dishes, the laundrying, the tidying, that kind of thing. It doesn't have to take a long time. You can split it into, 10 to 30 minute chunks, or if you prefer, take a whole Saturday morning and use that as your, I call it a heavy work day. For me, my Mondays are my heavy work day because we get back into our rhythms after having a relaxing Sabbath day on Sunday, a day of rest on Sunday. And then Mondays, my goals are all the dishes and all the laundry, or as much of the laundry done as we can possibly get. Again, this doesn't mean I'm in my laundry room every day. This just means I'm aware that that is where my focus is. But again, you either have your big chunks of work time or break it into small chunks and put it in times when you know you're going to have the energy. Don't put it into 10 o'clock at night. Schedule it in just like you would make an appointment with yourself as if you were going to the dentist or the doctor, and you would take that time out of your schedule. The reality is it doesn't have to take huge chunks of time, but you do have to find a way to schedule it in around your rhythms and routines. Number 4, with this process of designing a management system, a home management system that's going to work for you and your family, is to make it visual. Now, I know there's a lot of talk out there about home management binders and day planners and all that sort of stuff. And I did that for a long time. And one of the caveats with that is you can tuck it up on a shelf, and out of sight is out of mind. So when I say make it visual, I'm talking put it on the fridge. I actually have a 4 by some section of, or maybe it's more like 6 feet wide by 4, of my wall that I have dedicated to all of our homemaking checklists. And the reason why is because I walk by this wall several times a day, and it reminds me, but also my family walks by this wall several times a day, which means that they are also looking at these charts on a regular basis. Now, when I had it in my home management binder, I had to pull it out, or even when I left it on the counter, you had to physically go to the counter, flip to the right page. And honestly, my kids were not flipping through this book. When it's on the wall, all I need to do is point and say, hey, there's the task that I'm assigning to you. So having it visual and on a wall or on a fridge or on a cabinet door in your kitchen, you know what? It's not maybe the prettiest thing in the decor world, but the reality is that it helps to have it visual, where you are going to see it a number of times a day, where your family is going to see it so that your whole family can stay focused on this is what we do to care for our home. This actually really leads into phase 5 of getting a home management system that works for you and your family, and that is to communicate the expectations to your family. A lot of times we feel like we need to do it ourselves as mothers, as servants to our family, and as an act of service, as an act of love to our family, that this is our role. Now, that's partially correct in that, yes, it is our job to serve our families in these capacities. However, it is also our job as mothers and as wives to teach our family the importance of respecting the home, to teach our children the skills of managing a home so that they don't go through the same struggle when they move out on their own. Now, I'll be honest, when you have little kids, it's a little easier to maintain their cooperation for longer periods of time, to train them up in this. However, if you're starting with older children, that doesn't mean all hope is lost. It just means that you need to approach it a little differently. With a 3, 5, 2-year-old, that kind of toddler preschooler age, you can give them a rag and say, hey, go bulldoze all the crumbs into a pile on the table, right? And you can train them up from the time they're little and get their attitudes in the right place that way. When you are starting with older children, the best thing you can do is to have a family meeting where you show them, hey, this is what we're going to try to do. This is why we're doing it, because our home is a blessing from God, and we show our gratitude to Him by caring for it. This doesn't have to do with just getting kids to do chores. This has to do with teaching them the why behind it. We need to care for our home. We show our love to our family by caring for our things. We clean up before we get friends over so that they don't have to trip over our stuff. All those kinds of things, just shifting that attitude a little bit about and showing them the importance of cooperating with them. Show them the lists, show them where the lists are. And when you have it broken down into those 5 to 15 minute tasks, asking one child to say, can you empty the dishwasher and put the breakfast dishes in? That's like maybe a 5-minute task if they're really efficient and not easily distracted, which I'm not gonna lie, some kids are easily distracted and it takes more than 5 minutes. But it can go really, really fast. You're not asking them to, fold 10 baskets of laundry. You're saying, hey, can you just fold 10 pieces of laundry? That's my expectation for you right now. 5 minutes later, it's folded, put away, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Keeping it simple for our kids and giving them very clear directives. You look at your lists in the morning and say, okay, which 3 of these tasks, for example, do you want to take on? You can let your older kids get more involved in making those kinds of decisions rather than just telling them all the time what to do. So part of the reason why we ask our kids to contribute is I am, on one hand, a believer that as mothers, we are servants to our family and it is our job to serve them. But the reality is we do our kids a huge disservice when we are not teaching them the actual skills of how to properly clean a bathroom, how to properly tidy a kitchen, how to do laundry. We're sending our kids out into the world without any of these home management skills. We are doing them a disservice. That is not serving them. Kids need to be part of the family unit. I call this meaningful contribution. Kids crave meaningful contribution. They want to know that they are valued, that if we didn't have them within our family, that our family would suffer, and not just from a labor load, obviously. Now, again, I come from a farming background. Kids doing chores was just kind of the thing that we did growing up. It was just expected. But because it was just expected of us, nobody really thinks twice about when kids are doing, helping out with farm chores. Why do we think twice when kids are helping with home chores? The reality is it benefits our children to contribute to the home. They want to be part of the family team. They want to feel that sense of pride in their accomplishments. So not only are we teaching them the skills that they need to avoid the struggle that we've been going through, we can teach them how to manage a home before they actually have to manage a home. But we are also giving them the opportunity to contribute to the family in a meaningful way. And another thing is we are teaching our children the value of serving family members. And when you teach kids to serve their siblings by putting away their laundry or their dishes, rather than everybody just grabs their own stuff, right? Let's make this about serving each other and serving the family. Could you imagine how much better your sibling relationships can be, the relationships between your kids can be, if they are taught to serve each other? I have tried to condense several hours worth of training into a really short video here for you. And so I know that there are so many more details that I could give you to help you along the way. I actually have a course that I've designed called Stress to Blessed, Designing a Home Management System That You Love, that walks you through each of these steps in much more detail. It actually tells you the how and the why of setting standards and helps you walk through different standards for your home. It helps you create all those checklists, and you get all the PDFs so you can fill in your list yourself to make it visual, and you just fill it in and go. And there's also one of the most popular sections within that course is actually communicating these expectations to your family in a way that's going to gain more cooperation. Now, check the link in the description box for more information on that course. And I also want to share with you a video that I recorded a while back about how to foster sibling relationships. Because I talked about teaching children to serve each other, and that is one way to foster sibling relationships. But did you know sibling rivalry may be common, but it is not inevitable. Your kids don't have to be fighting all the time. What if they would get along better? So check out that video that I did on how to foster sibling relationships.